This isn't just a podcast, it's a reckoning, a calling, a return to what's real, to what's right, to what's yours. Because somewhere along the way, leadership became a game of sacrifice, success became a cage, and legacy, something you leave behind instead of something you live right now. The modern culture is here to change that. This is where old rules crumble and something truer, deeper, and far more takes their place. Where leadership is about presence, where success is aligned, and where legacy lives in every moment you choose to lead differently. Co-hosted by Cari and Leah Rolling, this is the space where fire meets flow, where strategy bows to wisdom, and where disruption isn't feared, it's embraced. If you're ready to build without burnout, to create without compromise, to lead in a way that feels like you, welcome to the modern culture.
Welcome back to the modern culture, where leadership isn't a title. It is something that we practice. This season, we are walking through the 10 principles that define what it really means to lead from within and build a culture that's awake and aligned and alive. And if conscious awareness is the foundation, the awakening, then courageous curiosity is the fire that follows. This is principle 2. And it's not about asking more questions, friends. It's about asking better ones, the kind that disrupt your default, that challenge what you've been handed, and call forth who you are here to become. Because the strongest leaders aren't the ones with the most answers. They're the ones who dare to ask the questions that no one else will. They question the system, they question the stories, and most of all, they question themselves. And oh, do we. In this episode, we're exploring what courageous curiosity really is, why it's no longer optional in 2025, and how to start practicing it in little bits that could possibly change everything for you. Because if you want a different outcome, personally, professionally, culturally, you don't need a new strategy. You don't need a new blueprint. You don't need a new map. You need deeper questions and the courage to follow it. So let's begin. Hello.
Hi. How are you, Miss Leah?
So good.
So good. I'm excited about this conversation today. I'm very excited about this one. So as we have been kicking off, and we will continue to kick off in these principled conversations, let's start with that foundational piece. The foundational piece on defining what courageous curiosity really is.
Yeah. So we're going to share with you what our definition is. But as you're listening to all these principles, what we invite our students, our facilitators, and the participants in organizations to do is define it for themselves. Mm-hmm. So as it's defined through modern culture, it really is the audacity and the bravery to ask the questions that no one else is asking. It's the humility to sit in the space between not knowing and discovering. It's not about being inquisitive for the sake of information, for the sake of confirming what you believe, but it's really about being willing to be wrong, willing to challenge those inherited beliefs, borrowed beliefs, and disrupt default thinking to reimagine what's possible. That's what courageous curiosity is.
So then how would you distinguish this from other, I don't know, terms, belief systems? What do people get this confused with? Because this is confused a lot, I think.
Yeah. So it's not passive inquiry. It's not just asking why, right? As if that's going to peel the onion. It's not endless gathering of information, right? This isn't like hoarding data and obsessing in the research in order to make a decision. That's not what it is. It's not polite interest. It's not about, oh, okay, that's nice. And then what? And then what? As if you're kind of faking the curiosity behind it.
Mhm.
It really is, it's a radical act of leaning in with these types of questions to really unearth, to discover something that didn't exist before you asked the question.
Mhm.
It's a different line of questioning, one that you don't get by just asking why. Um, I think people confuse it with being open-minded, right?
That's a good one.
It's not about being open to anything. It's about being willing to break something open, right?
Mhm.
It's not about brainstorming to kind of keep you in your comfort zone. It's what if instead we believe something that we haven't any business believing? Like it's believing in something that is impossible as opposed to what we've already done and how do we make it just a little bit better, right?
Mhm.
Instead of like, what if we did this just a little bit better? Instead of what haven't we even imagined that is
Mhm.
possible for us?
Mhm.
So that's what I would say. That's what
Yeah.
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 It's brilliant. Like we say, it is confused so often, really too often,
Yeah.
with what the world desires, right? It is what the world desires. They just have not had any real deep understanding or anything tangible to kind of wrap their hands around to go, God, what is this courageous curiosity? What is curiosity really at the end of the day?
Mhm.
So as they are looking at that, and we pull in those tangibilities, which I know you love, your little science side, your neuroscience side, all of those types of things. What is the science behind this?
So much.
Yay!
Like so
Right?
much. I wish we had an hour just on the science side. But
Yes.
if for the science, like geeks out there like me, um, curiosity is your biological advantage. That's what it is. It's so neurobiologic, neurologically, it activates the brain's reward system, the dopamine that enhances learning, enhances memory, it enhances neuroplasticity, which is just that idea that neurons that fire together wire together, and we create neural pathways. And if we can create them, we can disrupt them, which is what we do by being curious. Psychologically, it reduces anxiety, it interrupts your fear loops, it increases emotional resilience by shifting focus from threat to possibility. As when I was sharing those questions that we ask, it's not what can we do that's just a little bit better than what we've done in the past. It's what can we do that we've never done before in possibility.
Yeah.
Just that shifts the amygdala to get you to think in something that brings forward excitement, because there is no potential in the past and we look for it there, right? And then we get frustrated and overwhelmed and exhausted because we're trying to recreate something that we've already done and trying to get excited about it. So that's what it does emotionally and organizationally for your businesses, for teams that you lead. It builds trust. It drives innovation. Like doing what's already been done is not innovative, friends. It's rinsing, repeating, and maybe doing it just a little bit better. We're not interested in the modern culture of being change agents. We are disrupting the transformation that we believe is required. We believe that's what your heart yearns for. So um, we just think organizationally, teams led by curious leaders are more engaged, they're more adaptable, they're more resilient, they're more aligned, they're held more accountable to outcomes that obviously then drives your culture results. So that's the science. That's the science behind it. So now that we have the science behind it, we understand why neurologically, why biologically, why organizationally it might be important to adopt this principle in your leadership. What are some of the warning signs that someone doesn't have this principle embodied? How does it show up, like in their life and their relationships, when this is missing?
You know, when this is missing, the absolute first thing that comes to mind when you say that is intention. It is stepping into something with an expectation. It is stepping into something with an intention. Use a phone call, use a meeting, use anything that you have coming up. If you're stepping into it with an intention, a preconceived outcome, there is no courageous curiosity. There isn't, because you haven't allowed space for it. You've already made your mind up as to what the outcome is going to be on the other side. And when you do that, you stop listening. You are trying to navigate a conversation in the direction that feeds that preconceived outcome that you've already put in place. So you stop listening, you interrupt, you tend to defend your position in order to pull people back into a misaligned, right? A misaligned alignment with what it is that you desire. And then you perform instead of asking. And it is about asking the deeper questions. Any of this is not leadership, you guys. This is not leadership. It is fear dressed up as certainty. And we think it earns us trust. We think if we hold it all together, right? If we hold it all together and we come in with the intention and we come in with the agenda, and we already have like that outcome that we're going for, that's leadership. And it's not. And it's not trust. The inability to get curious, that's the reason that nobody is going to tell you the truth. That's the reason why people don't have the opportunity or don't feel like they can get vulnerable in a conversation, because they know on the other side of that, curiosity is not really going to come into play. And as you said, Leah, curiosity is not just in asking questions. It is really in diving more deeply underneath to get to the real. It is consistently asking deeper questions to understand what it is that they're bringing forward and the genius that they're bringing it forward, in order to understand their intention that lies behind the work that they did or the conversation that you're having. So if at any point you step into a room and curiosity isn't there, I'm going to tell you right now, control is. And where that control lives, connection is going to die every single time.
It's so, like, I really hope that you took away, because I would think that the leadership today thinks that intention is a good thing.
It is a good thing.
Right? Right?
Mhm.
Like, I'm
Yes.
very intentional about this meeting. I've got my whole outline of
Mhm.
what we're gonna, right? And everything with flexibility. But what if the intention is to be curious over your roadmap, your outcome,
Exactly.
what you're bringing to it?
Yes.
It's so good. Okay, so why, more than ever, is this principle, especially for leaders, so important to understand?
Mm. Well, I mean, again, we could continuously in every single one of these principles go, could we just look at the landscape of 2025 and everything that this has offered up to us? I will say, first and foremost, if we do not bring curiosity to the table, we are going to be swayed in too many different directions that aren't leading us back to our own integrity or our own authenticity. If we're not bringing curiosity to try and understand the thing that sits underneath what is being presented to us, right? We're going to end up buying into things that don't make any sense for us. They don't make any sense for us, and they don't make any sense for our organizations, our families, or our communities. Okay? We're leading in complexity. At this point, at this moment in time, we are leading in complexity because the answers are not always going to be cleared. There is so much noise happening in the world, right? The leaders who pretend they're leading in clarity without curiosity, you're going to lose credibility. That's what's going to happen, because that curiosity allows us to lead without pretending. It allows us to stay open. It allows us to shift with integrity instead of breaking underneath the pressure of the world. And all you have to do, my friends, is throw yourself on social media, open up the TV, and you're going to see it. You're going to see the pressure of fear. And if we're not allowing ourselves to be curious, okay, we're going to break underneath it. The world is calling us forward into something different. It is calling for adaptive leaders, people who can sit in the ambiguity and lead with questions, that move us forward and not the egos that hold us back.
Mm.
Okay. I mean,
So,
it's too much noise.
too much noise.
Too
Yes.
much noise.
Oh, so good. It's so good.
Yeah. So when we talk through that love, when we talk through kind of like the things that are getting in the way and why this is so incredibly important for 2025, what would you say are some of the, I don't know, common illusions, some of the coping mechanisms people fall into, right? So they
Mhm.
fall into something because they're not embodying courageous curiosity. What would that be?
So if the opposite of courageous curiosity, as you brought forward, is like this need to control, right?
Yeah.
This need for certainty. Okay.
Yeah.
When they feel out of alignment, when they feel uncertain, when they feel out of control, they reach for what we're going to call for today an illusion of safety.
Mm.
And they reach for safety, but what they're really doing is avoiding what the root issue is.
Yes.
So how it looks up. We overthink, right? We overthink every scenario. We want to just be confused by it. And so we live in the miserable land of maybe. Well, maybe this, well, maybe that. And then we don't make any decision. We just completely be indecisive, right? And we think that the overthinking is intelligent, right? And it just keeps us busy in our head so we don't have to feel discomfort in the misalignment of who we are. When that feels awful, let's just overthink it, right? Let's just overthink it because that'll solve for it.
Yes.
We numb out. We numb out. This is the coping mechanism for all of these principles when we don't do it, right? We just numb out, right? Because if we can control the details, we think that everything is going to be okay. So we try to control what we scroll. We try to control what we do. We control all of the busyness, so we don't actually have to solve for what actually is happening. We chase validation. We look for outside proof that we're doing it right because we lack the certainty of our own knowing and of our own worth. Right? So these are the things that we do when we don't get curious enough to realize that that is our superpower. It's not a weakness. It's not a liability, right? It's what we get to do to bring forward not only like what we could begin to know, but we get to call forward what other people believe also to know. So that's what I would say about that. That's what I would say about that.
Oh my gosh.
So in knowing that, like in knowing these are the things that we do, we overthink, we numb out, we micromanage, we what's really going on? Like, what is this behavior actually doing for them? They have a reason for doing it.
Oh my gosh, always,
but
right?
what's the benefit? What is the benefit that's keeping them stuck there?
You know, when you were talking, I wrote down because I thought I was like, oh, this is so good. What we are doing and when we are searching for certainty, and we search for certainty because of that preconceived notion of the outcome. We search for certainty because of that intention that we have laid out that we've pushed forward. Okay. And in that search for certainty, which is what all of these things do, right? The control, the certainty, the overdoing of all of the things, right? It's trying to place you in a position of control. And when you place yourself in a position of control, then you are trying to lock into certainty. Okay. But what you are doing is you are negating the opportunity for the journey. That's what we're doing. When we search for certainty, we don't allow ourselves the opportunity of the journey. And curiosity, my friends, is the journey. Because the journey isn't sitting safely in the box that has become familiar to you. And so familiar, in fact, that even if it's killing your leadership, you're going to stay contained within the safety of that box, because that certainty, my friend, has become a drug.
Mhm.
It's become a drug. It makes you feel powerful when
Mhm.
you're actually afraid.
Mhm.
Control is not leadership, and performance isn't presence. When we have the opportunity to get curious, and again, it's that courageous curious. It's not asking questions for the sake of asking questions. Did you ask 3 questions before you made a determination, right? That's performance. It's not presence. But when we have the opportunity to ask those very curious questions, to hold it in an open and conscious awareness, that's going to be the most courageous thing that you do.
Mm. It's so good. And really, if when you were saying this, I was thinking, oh my gosh, yeah. It's not just
Mhm.
asking more questions.
No.
Necessarily. Sometimes you don't even have to ask a question. You bring something forward without an
Yes.
intention. You just want to lay it at somebody's feet. And then the only question that we really ever have to ask, and we don't have to ask it out loud, we ask it up here in our head and our heart, is how can I be wrong about this?
Mhm.
Because
Mhm.
when you're willing to ask that question, you don't have to get defensive. You don't have to justify. You don't have to argue, because they'll tell you how you're wrong about it.
Right.
They'll tell you that's just not the way it is. And
Mhm.
if you really allow for that truth to be there, it can be so powerful, because then
Mhm.
you can learn what you couldn't learn when you had an intention of your own knowing, if that makes sense. So what's the real cost here then?
Well, so what's interesting is when you talk about that and you going into a meeting, going into a conversation, and just kind of taking it out and laying it, right? If we're not doing that, if we're not taking that out and we're not laying it as an opening, right? And again, it's that curiosity of, and like just that question of, okay, so what do you think about this? Period. Without coming forward, because a lot of times that curiosity, by the way, if you allow yourself to be open enough and have that awareness around it, that curiosity that you think you have is actually you just asking questions to guide them back into the answer and the response that you truly want. So that's one thing we've got to be careful of, because when we ignore this, what we're going to do is we're going to create a room of people who just say yes. Okay. And then they leave with their own truth. They leave with actually maybe potentially a better opportunity, something that's going to dive deeper, that's going to enhance, that's going to be something even greater than the thing that you put out on the table. But when we're not doing that, you're going to find people are just going to go, yep, I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And then they're going to leave and go, I don't understand what's happening.
Mhm.
And that's where you lose your team.
Mhm.
That's where you lose innovation and you lose your influence. Okay. Because they're not going to bring things forward to you.
Mhm.
They're not going to bring it forward because you're too busy being right.
Mhm.
You're too busy being the one with the certainty. You're too
Mhm.
busy being the one with the answer that just gets curious in order to confirm or to validate the thing that you've brought forward. So when everyone in the room is quiet, it is not because they respect you, my friend. It's not. It's because they've stopped believing that you'll listen.
Mm. Mhm. Mhm.
That's what's happening,
That is.
right?
Uh-huh. Yeah. So if that so that is one obstacle that
Mm-hmm.
as
Mm-hmm.
leaders we have to be mindful of, right?
Yes.
You want to be a leader that people feel like they can come and they can
Mm-hmm.
talk to you, so that they feel heard and they feel appreciated and they feel understood.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're not that for them, then without being obvious, then none of what I just said is true. Then you're most likely the leader that you're not consciously wanting to be.
Exactly.
Nobody woke up this morning and thought, you know what? I really want to piss off my team. I
Nobody.
really want to. No one rose their hand and was like, yes, how can I do that today?
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
that is what you do when you pre-lead in the way that you just said.
Yeah.
You lead with an intention and you ask questions that support the bias that you have for the very intention that you laid out. It wasn't open. It was, this is what I'm going to propose, and I'm going to give you all the reasons why. As long as you agree with me, this will be a right decision.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. Right.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else outside of just massive loss of trust, massive loss of innovation, massive loss of just collaboration in teams that you see when we don't take this principle with the level of seriousness that is required?
What I would say to that is, not only do you lose your team, but you lose yourself in the process of it. Because I always say, it's not discerning. So if you don't have the ability to create this kind of curiosity within the realm of your team or within the realm of your relationships, if you don't have the opportunity to ask the questions outside of the intention that you've laid out, then you're not asking yourself these questions either. And you probably haven't asked yourself a real question in months. Right? And some of those, I mean, have we ever thought to pause and go, why this? Like, why right now? Why this? Or have we even asked, is this still true for me? Is this still aligned for me? And so often we don't, because that busyness is the buffer. It numbs out that misalignment, right? When you think you're building something, but if you're not asking why, you're just decorating all of the chaos, right? You're just masking the dysfunction. And so that's where I say, it's not just you lose those around you and you lose the trust of those around you, you lose that within yourself. That's what you do. So with all of this, Leah, with everything that we've kind of navigated through, which has been a lot, and like we said, we could have an hour and a half, like a whole day on curiosity, because it's so important. What would you give them for like a real quick 2-minute? What is it that they could take with them out of this conversation and go, here's your challenge between now and next week. Here's your 2-minute that we would love for you to be able to sit in, and then maybe even connect with us and report back. What would that be?
Oh my gosh. So last week I asked you to habit stack your teeth brushing. I asked you, as you're brushing your teeth, really be thinking about what you're thinking about in that type of awareness. And today, what I want to challenge you guys to do is, if you're a to-do person like I am, and if you have your little to-do lists, right? What I find very fascinating is we have all these to-do things, but rarely do we put on our to-do list to think, right? To think about what it is that we're thinking about, to ask yourself, to your point, what am I interpreting that isn't true? And even if I want to believe that it's true, am I creating unnecessary suffering in that truth? We do it all of the time. We create so much anxiety and burden and depression and sadness and suffering because we don't even allow ourselves to get curious, because we just need to be right in it. And so where can we release that suffering for the sake of curiosity? Because if you can be curious about the interpretations that you make that are pissing you off and frustrating you, that is when you will find freedom. That is when you will find peace. And that is when you will be able to connect with people on a deeper level, because you won't need them to validate who you are, because you've already done that work for yourself.
I love it.
It goes back to self-trust.
I love it. It's brilliant. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes,
All
yes.
right, friends. Well, until we tap in next week for principle number 3, that's the challenge for you. I really hope you take that with sincerity, with curiosity to see what it could potentially open up for you, and with that open awareness that we talked about last week. So until we meet again, friends, I hope you have a blessed day.
You have been listening to The Modern Culture, co-hosted by Leah Rowling and Carrie Kenzie. This is the space where fire meets flow, where strategy bows to wisdom, and where disruption isn't feared, it's embraced. Tune in every Friday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time on Transformation Network, because this isn't just a podcast. It's a reckoning, a calling, a return.